Elephant Mountain Range of Cambodia is a downed Marine helicopter and 12 stranded Marines. I was flying a routine Navy helicopter flight, and I had made a routine radio call that went just like this: Night Rider, checkpoint Alpha. And the downed Marine pilot heard my voice over the radio and said, "Squeaks, we need your help. We've emergency landed, and we're west of you." And then the radios went silent. I immediately turned west, and my crew and I started our search and rescue protocol. And my mind was racing. What had happened? Were there injuries? And if so, to what extent? I was too far out to call the ship to inform them what was going on. My crew and I were on our own to find these Marines in that terrain. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a unique voice, and my call sign was Squeaky, and I'm very proud of that. The most feminine and unique thing about me is my voice. It was a thing that I was made fun of constantly for in flight school, but this voice, this unique voice, became my greatest asset when I was flying operationally. You see, there was never any confusion or any fear that I might be an imposter. My voice just stood out over those radios, and I was regularly called upon for assistance. You see, I'm a woman, and I sound different. But in time, people learned that my mama instincts are strong, and I'm very protective, and I would do anything and everything I could to help my brothers and sisters in arms. We ended up finding that Marine crew that day. They had emergency landed due to a maintenance malfunction and were in a small clearing on the mountainside. We couldn't land due to the terrain, but were able to hoist down one of our crewmen to start first aid protocol. One personal aspect I'd like to share about being a female Navy helicopter pilot was that the Marines loved me, but my fellow Navy pilots and squadron mates did not. You see, they saw a token. They saw a diversity candidate, and therefore I did not belong there. Whether I had an amazing tour or a challenging tour was completely centered around my boss and his leadership style. You see, if my boss had inclusive leadership style, I had a great experience. We had great teamwork. We had great employee engagement. If my boss did not employ inclusive leadership style, then we created an environment of divided teams, of haves and have-nots, of cool guys and not cool guys. You see, my gender was never a factor. It was the leadership style of my boss that was. During my tougher tours, I studied Navy Black history to find inspiration and strength to get me through these times. The Golden 13 is one of the most inspirational books I have ever read, and it is a story of the first 13 Black officers in the Navy. These men believed that they would set back the course of racial justice if not all 13 of them succeeded. So they banded together to ensure that all of them would succeed. Then we have the Tuskegee Airmen. These were African-American pilots that flew in World War II. They flew more than 15,000 sorties and earned more than 150 distinguished flying crosses. They were just simply elite pilots. We have the Women Air Service pilots, the WASPs. More than 1,100 women volunteered to be pilots during World War II. Their commanding general was Hap Arnold, and he is on record as stating, "Now in 1944, it is on record that women can fly as well as men." So why, after women flying for nearly a century and having proven their ability in wartime 70 years earlier, was I still an anomaly? In the Navy, sometimes brute strength matters. And while I left the Navy and started my MBA, I was very confused while I was studying how so many civilian industries are male-dominated that have absolutely nothing to do with brute strength. And so I just began studying this and became very passionate and inspired by this. And then I learned the power of diverse teams, that they were more profitable, that they were more innovative, that they had higher employee engagement, and they outperformed. And then I would read studies that would show the same resume, and how that resume would be interpreted differently, whether it had a male, a female, or a minority-sounding name on the top of it. And then what alarmed me were the statistics that were happening in our STEM industry, where 45% of women will leave their position within 1 year due to what they perceive as a hostile work environment. 45%. And I started thinking, what is going on in our civilian workforce? And then I would think, when did typing on a computer all day become some kind of male-dominated masculine trait? So then in the spring of 2017 came the Uber meltdown due to organizational chaos and sexism. And then came the Google manifesto that same summer, where an engineer writes a 10-page sexist document and actually distributes it, creating a textbook hostile work environment. Can you imagine being a woman on the same team as this guy? Can you imagine being a woman having to work for this guy? What about being a woman that has to supervise this guy? Would any of you want your wives or daughters to work for this guy? But statistics show he's truly not unique. This is why I lean in on this subject, because I know what it felt like to be an extreme minority in the ultimate boys' club of naval aviation. I know what it took to succeed. I know what women in male-dominated fields are truly going through. We need to de-emphasize diversity because it is obvious who those diverse candidates are. In Europe, they have this unique quota system. They require 30 to 40% of their board members to be women. And they initiated the quota system to reduce sexism, increase diversity, and reduce the gender pay gaps. When this quota system was initiated and companies started recruiting their female candidates, they started calling them the golden skirts. And you see, that's why I'm no fan of quota systems, because it immediately trivializes even the most qualified candidates. In Europe, this quota system is actually working, though. And it's working because it's changed the conversation, and it's requiring businesses to focus on developing female leadership, too, and not just giving lip service or diversity training. What if in America we can change the conversation without employing quota systems by de-emphasizing diversity and focusing on the traits that matter, which are inclusion, collaboration, and team performance? We can get to this organic culture where these diverse teams can flourish because it's all about performance, right? Diverse teams have proven themselves. Now we need to create these cultures and these environments where they can flourish. In the tech industry, ethnic and racial minority has only increased 1% to 2% in 15 years, while simultaneously female representation has been reduced by 1%. Silicon Valley has paid attention to diversity. They've invested millions in diversity training, but have shown extremely minimal progress. And that's because they're focused on the wrong things. We need to focus on the traits that matter, which is inclusion, collaboration, and team performance. We need to focus on looking at people as human beings and the qualified candidates that they are, regardless of the type of name they have on the top of their resume. We need to get to positive, true work cultures and work environments without quotas. And after learning how resistant the civilian world is to diverse candidates, I would like to leave you with this not a token challenge. Please, de-emphasize diversity, avoid tokenism, focus on the traits that matter, which are inclusion, collaboration, and team performance. Embrace those that are different than you, because I assure you, those differences are a strength, just like my voice. None of the men that I rescued cared that I was a woman. None of the people on that Southwest airline who had an engine explode midair should care that the captain was a woman, and neither should you. Thank you.